So after sending another $40 million to Hamas, making the total Canada has sent the terrorist organization $100 million, Mark Carney just announced that Canada was going to recognize Palestinian statehood. Canada, this is a five-fire alarm. The Liberals are a party of extremists who support terrorist organizations over democracies. The Middle East, what's so funny to me is Liberals claim to support gay rights for everybody. They support the underprivileged, those who don't have opportunities. In Gaza, they have a law where if you are caught having relations with another man as a man, you are sentenced to a minimum of 10 years in prison. And in many cases, if you are caught in a gay relationship in Gaza, you are killed. So the Liberals claim on one hand to stand up for the oppressed and the LGBT community, but at the same time they send hundreds of millions of dollars at the same time that we have 2 million Canadians using food banks. Our middle and lower classes are dying out due to unfettered immigration. They claim to stand for the oppressed, yet they send hundreds of millions of our tax dollars to a literal terrorist organization. Go read Hamas's manifesto. It is disturbing. It is incredibly disturbing, and it is the antithesis of the Western values that Canadians claim to uphold, but we're seeing more and more in our streets. We don't uphold those values. I have seen some of the most vile language I have ever witnessed in the entirety of my life by these hordes of terrorist supporters walking through our streets. And I've tried to get up close because I want to understand what's going on. I think it's very important as citizens, as uncomfortable as it may be, to understand exactly what's going on in our cities. These are not friendly people. You see people wearing Hamas headbands in our street. When you get close to them, if you give any indication that you are not 100% in agreement at what they are violently screaming, they will try to threaten you. I have seen this with my own two eyes time and time again. These are not friendly groups roaming our streets, and we have allowed hundreds of thousands of them into our country. Now the Liberal government is sending them hundreds of millions of dollars. Canadians better wake the hell up. I know World War II is getting further and further in the rear view, but the amount of extremists that we are now seeing, particularly among the younger generation, needs to be very alarming. These are people who have been inundated with the woke mindset of oppressed oppressor. They're using the Cloud Piven strategy to... Our youth are becoming more and more radical in this country because they've been through the liberal propaganda machine for the entirety of their lives, and we are seeing that play out more and more on the streets. Now Mark Carney, who sells himself as some sort of a moderate, is sending them hundreds of millions of dollars. Anita Anand, another extremist liberal in our government, actually had to shut her office down because there were so many protests that threatened violence. And this is a woman who's extremely liberal and extremely pro-Hamas. The amount of terrorist supporters who we are now seeing in the Liberal government is shocking, and it's going to continue to grow. Canadians need to open their eyes. We're a peace-loving democracy. But the amount of extremist left-wingers who view the world through this oppressor paradigm is very different than the paradigm that we've always known between democracies versus authoritarian regimes. And more, we're seeing this odd symbiosis between these terrorists and these far left-wingers who are both using each other in a very odd way to gain advantage and to overtake power in countries like Canada. If normal right-thinking Canadian citizens don't wake up to what's happening, things are going to get very ugly in this very ugly in this country. If you're interested in supporting my work, hit the link in my bio. I'm going to be organizing rallies up on Parliament Hill in the next couple of weeks because Canadians need to actually start hitting the streets. It is not enough to just be on social media. We have to physically be out in the streets. So if you're interested, I have gear you can support. Also, link in my bio. But we need to be very aware of just how extreme the far left Liberal Party has become, led by an incredibly corrupt man in Mark Carney.